They called for saviors, but Earth sent its beasts across the silent stretch of space. A transmission burned through relays, satellites, and listening posts. It carried the combined voice of many worlds, tired, broken, and desperate. The galactic conquered had lasted for centuries, a fragile alliance of dozens of species bound by trade, law, and the promise that no one would face extinction alone. Now that promise was cracking. On the bridge of the conquered flagship Hellion Dawn, Supreme Coordinator Lethrix watched the message repeat on a wide holographic screen. His 4 eyes blinked slowly, each one showing a different kind of exhaustion. "We have exhausted all options," the message said. "Our fleets are failing. Our defenses collapse faster than we can rebuild them. We request immediate assistance from any civilization capable of intervention." Lethrix's tendrils tightened. They had already lost 12 core systems. The enemy did not behave like conquerors. It did not demand surrender or territory. It arrived, disrupted communication, spread panic, and vanished, only to return stronger. Entire populations fled their worlds before a single shot was fired. Armies broke apart without ever seeing the face of what they fought. Fear traveled faster than ships ever could. The conquered had asked for help before. Most species answered with hesitation or conditions. Some stayed silent. Only one name remained on the list of uncontacted powers. Earth, a young world by galactic standards, violent history. Divided politics, strange culture, but also fast learners, adaptive thinkers, and survivors of their own worst mistakes. "They are unstable," one advisor had warned earlier. "They weaponize unpredictability." Lethrix had approved the call anyway, because stability had failed. The transmission reached Earth during its night cycle. In a listening facility buried deep under stone and steel, human analysts froze as the signal decoded itself. Languages aligned, data layered. The meaning became clear. A galaxy was asking for help. Within minutes, the message moved up secure channels. Within an hour, it reached a chamber few humans even knew existed. The room was simple. No flags, no cameras, only a long table and 7 people seated around it. Soldiers, scientists, strategists. None of them smiled. Admiral Renata Cole stood at the head of the table. Her hair was gray, her posture straight, her eyes sharp. "They're losing," she said. "Badly." A projection filled the air, maps of burning systems, broken fleets, abandoned planets. General Marcus Hale leaned back in his chair. "They want peacekeepers. They want saviors," said Dr. Elias Venn. "Symbols of hope." Cole nodded once. "That's not what we're good at." Silence followed, then Hale spoke again. "So, do we tell them no?" "No," Cole said. "We tell them yes." Several heads turned. "But not the way they expect." She tapped the table. The lights dimmed. A new symbol appeared, classified, old, and rarely mentioned. Project BSTFALL. Venn exhaled slowly. "That program was shelved for a reason." "It was hidden," Cole corrected. "Not shelved." One of the younger officers frowned. "You're talking about deploying them?" Hale's mouth curved into something that was not quite a smile. "The ones designed for worst-case worlds." The room grew colder. Project Beastfall was not about monsters in the literal sense. It was about humans shaped by extremes. Units trained where normal rules failed. Environments designed to break minds. Situations where command lines disappeared and survival depended on instinct, creativity, and control under pressure. They were called beasts because they did not fight clean. They adapted. "They don't need clear battle lines," Hale said. "They don't need stable supply chains. They don't panic when things go dark." Venn folded his hands. "But the aliens will see them as dangerous, uncontrolled." "They are controlled," Cole said firmly. "Better than anything else we have." She looked at the conquered message again. "They asked for help," she said. "They didn't ask how." The decision was made quietly. No speeches, no public announcements. Earth would answer. The conquered received Earth's reply 12 standard hours later. It was short. "We hear your call. Assistance is en route." That was all. Celebration broke out across the surviving conquered worlds. Leaders spoke of unity. Citizens cheered. Analysts speculated about advanced weapons, massive fleets, and shining heroes from the human homeworld. Lethrix allowed himself a moment of relief. Then the long-range sensors began to detect movement. At first, it looked wrong. The incoming vessels were not arranged in neat formations. Their signals fluctuated. Their hull designs varied wildly. Some ships were old by human standards, others frighteningly modern. None matched known conquered military doctrine. "They travel loosely," an officer reported. No ceremonial alignment. Perhaps human custom is different, Lethrix said, though unease crept into his voice. As the ships drew closer, more strange details appeared. Their energy signatures were aggressive. Their communication channels were silent. No greeting. No identification codes beyond simple numeric tags. The fleet stopped at the edge of conquered space. Then smaller craft detached, drop vessels. Why are they deploying ground units? An advisor asked. We have not designated landing zones. The answer came moments later. A single human transmission broke the silence. The voice was calm, steady, and unmistakably confident. This is Commander Sarah Cade of Earth Expeditionary Force. We don't need landing zones, just point us at the problem. Lethrix hesitated. Commander, the enemy is unconventional. They disrupt morale, sow fear. We know, Cade replied. That's why we're here. Sensors showed the human units entering contested systems without waiting for escort. They did not ask for detailed plans. They did not request command authority. They simply moved. On one devastated moon, conquered troops had abandoned a defensive line weeks earlier. Panic had spread too fast. Now human figures landed among the ruins, spreading out, scanning, adapting. They did not retreat. They studied, they learned. Alien observers watched in silence as humans operated in conditions others found unbearable. Communication blackouts did not stop them. Unclear enemy presence did not slow them. They behave like predators, one conquered officer whispered. But disciplined? Lethrix felt a strange chill. These were not shining saviors, they were something else. On Earth, Admiral Cole watched the same feeds. Once they're in, Hale said, there's no turning them off. Cole nodded. That's why we don't send them lightly. She folded her arms. Let's hope the galaxy understands, she said quietly, that we didn't send monsters. Outside, stars burned calmly, unaware that the balance of fear had just shifted. The conquered had called for saviors. Earth had answered. And the beasts had arrived. On the broken moon of Karos 9, the sky had been silent for days. Conquered forces had retreated after losing command control, leaving behind empty bunkers, half-powered shields, and equipment scattered in panic. The moon was cold, gray, and filled with fear that still lingered in the air. Then the human dropships came. They did not shine. They did not slow for display. They cut through the thin atmosphere and landed hard, kicking dust and stone in every direction. Ramps opened before the engines fully powered down. Humans stepped out. They moved fast, but not in chaos. Small groups spread out, each one knowing exactly where to go without being told. Their armor was dark, marked with scratches and faded symbols. Nothing about them looked ceremonial. Conquered observers watched from orbit uneasy. They did not request tactical data, one analyst said. They did not ask for maps. Supreme Coordinator Lethrix narrowed his eyes. Perhaps they already made their own. On the surface, Commander Sarah Cade scanned the ruins through her visor. Her unit, Beastfall Echo, had already split into teams. No chatter, she said calmly. Assume we're being watched. A soldier beside her adjusted a sensor spike and pushed it into the ground. No enemy signals, same pattern as the reports, quiet where it shouldn't be, Cade nodded. That means they're close. The enemy never announced itself. That was its nature. It fed on confusion, on uncertainty. Conquered records showed that morale always broke before contact. Soldiers felt watched, heard things that were not there, orders stopped making sense. But the humans did not wait to feel afraid. They worked. Drones rose into the air, silent and fast. Ground sensors spread in wide patterns. One team powered up an abandoned Conquered relay and rerouted it through human systems. Ghost signals detected, a technician said. They're probing us. Cade's voice stayed steady. Let them. In orbit, Conquered officers stared in disbelief. They are inviting contact, one said. That is reckless. No, Lethrix replied slowly. That is confidence. The first sign of the enemy was not an attack, it was a whisper. A Conquered monitoring officer suddenly stiffened. I'm receiving emotional feedback from the moon, fear spikes. But it's not coming from the humans. The enemy's presence pressed against the human units like a shadow. It bent light, sound, and thought. Against other species, this pressure caused panic within minutes. Against humans, it met resistance. Private Jonah Reyes felt the air grow heavy. Old instincts stirred. His heart rate rose, but he did not freeze. He had trained in worse places, dark tunnels, collapsing cities, simulated chaos designed to break recruits. This feels wrong, he said. That means it's working, replied his squad leader. Stay sharp. The enemy finally revealed itself, not as a single form, but as many shifting shapes at the edge of perception. Conquered sensors could barely track it. Human weapons locked on anyway. They did not fire wildly. They waited. When the enemy struck, it did not charge. It tried to confuse. Images flashed across human visors. Voices echoed, false commands, false alarms, memories twisted to distract. Against another species, this would have been enough. Against humans, it was noise. Filter it, Cade ordered. Human systems adapted in seconds. Visual feeds simplified. Audio channels narrowed. Emotional spikes were flagged and dampened. The beasts did not lose control. They advanced. The first human counterattack was precise and terrifying to watch. Not overwhelming force, targeted disruption. Energy pulses collapsed the enemy's unstable forms. Drones marked weak points. Soldiers moved as if they could feel where the enemy would appear next. "They're hunting it," a conquered officer whispered. "They're not defending." On the ground, the enemy tried again. It shifted tactics, projecting despair instead of fear. Images of fallen allies, ruined worlds, endless loss. Ray's swallowed hard, then he laughed softly. "Yeah," he muttered. "Seen worse." He fired. The enemy recoiled not from the weapon, but from the mind behind it. Humans did not deny fear. They carried it, shaped it, and moved forward anyway. Within hours, Karo's 9 was secure. No grand announcement followed. The humans simply reported, "Area stable." Lethrix stared at the report. "1 moon," he said, "in hours." "That system took us 3 weeks," an advisor replied quietly. Before the Conquered could respond, new signals came in. Human units had already deployed to 3 more contested locations, without waiting. On the world of Selûne Prime, Conquered forces had refused to land. The planet's cities were intact, but its population was paralyzed. People would not leave their homes. Fear had become a prison. Human ships entered orbit. Commander Cade contacted planetary leadership directly. "We're coming down," she said. "Tell your people to stay inside." The alien governor hesitated. "The enemy feeds on terror. Your presence may worsen it." "It won't," Cade replied. "Trust us." The humans landed in city centers, not battlefields. They walked streets where no other soldiers dared to go. They ignored the strange shadows and unseen pressure. Civilians watched from windows as humans moved calmly, setting up lights, generators, and communication hubs. They brought noise. Music played through human speakers, steady, rhythmic sounds meant to anchor the mind. Drones projected simple patterns into the sky. Human voices filled the air with clear instructions. Fear lost its grip. The enemy tried to push back. Shadows deepened. Whispers returned. A human medic looked up and spoke out loud. "You're not special," she said calmly. "You're just another problem." The shadows faded. By the next planetary cycle, Selûne Prime was stable. Across the Conquered, fear began to change, not vanish, change. Alien soldiers started asking questions instead of retreating. Civilians returned to public spaces. Commanders noticed something new in their reports, hope, but it was mixed with unease. "These humans," one general said, "they do not fight like us." "No," Lethrix agreed. "They fight like they expect the universe to be hostile." On Earth, Admiral Cole reviewed the data. "They're adapting faster than projected," Ven said. "The enemy is adjusting, but not fast enough." "And the aliens?" Hale asked. "They're scared," Ven replied. "Of the enemy and of us." Cole leaned forward. "That was always going to happen." She paused, then added, "as long as they understand one thing." "What's that?" Hale asked. "That we're on their side." Back in Conquered space, Commander Cade received new orders. Multiple enemy concentrations, deeper territory, higher risk. She smiled slightly. "All right," she said to her team. "Now they know we're here." The beasts of Earth did not roar, they advanced. And somewhere in the dark between stars, the enemy began to realize something terrifying. It was no longer hunting a frightened galaxy. It was being hunted by humans. For a long time, it had moved freely through the galaxy. It entered systems quietly, touched minds, and watched civilizations fall apart from the inside. Fleets were useless when crews refused to fight. Weapons meant nothing when hope collapsed first. Fear was its tool. Now fear was changing. In a dark region between stars, the enemy gathered. It had no true shape, no single voice, but it shared thought and memory across distance. It felt the difference immediately. The humans. Where other species broke, humans resisted. Where panic should have spread, it slowed. Where confusion should have grown, it failed. This was wrong. On the shattered world of Relly's, Conquered forces had built a final defensive line. The planet's surface was scarred by old conflicts, its cities half buried under ash. Morale was low, supplies were thin. The enemy had been circling for days, pressing at the edges of thought. Then the humans arrived. Commander Sarah Cade stood on a ridge overlooking the ruins. Wind pushed dust across her armor. Below her, conquered soldiers waited nervously, their movements tight and unsure. "They're close," said Lieutenant Park, checking his scanner. "Same pattern as before, no direct contact." Cade looked at the conquered troops. Some would not meet her eyes. "They're afraid," Park said quietly. "They've been afraid for weeks," Cade replied. "We've had training." She opened a channel to the conquered commander, a tall insect-like being named Vorun. "Your forces will hold position," Cade said calmly. "We're going forward." Vorun clicked in concern. "That area is unstable. Units that enter lose cohesion." Cade nodded. "Ours won't." The human units moved out, spreading into the ruins. They did not rush. They did not hesitate. Each step was careful, deliberate. The enemy felt them coming. It pushed back. A wave of pressure rolled through the ruins. Old memories surfaced. Regrets, losses, moments of failure. Conquered soldiers cried out and fell to their knees. Human soldiers slowed but did not stop. Private Jonah Reyes felt his chest tighten. Images flashed in his mind, people he had lost, places he could not return to. His breathing grew heavy. He clenched his fists. "Focus," he muttered. "One step." Training took over. He named objects around him. He checked his weapon. He listened to his squads breathing through the comms. The pressure weakened. The enemy recoiled. On conquered sensors, analysts stared in disbelief. "The human emotional response is structured," one said. "They are processing fear instead of drowning in it." Lethrix watched the data streams. "They learned to live with fear long before they reached the stars." The enemy shifted tactics. Instead of pressing directly, it withdrew, pulling deeper into the ruins. It created false trails, emotional traps, and empty spaces meant to confuse. The humans followed. "They're not chasing blindly," Park noted. "They're mapping its behavior." Cade nodded. "It thinks fear is a weapon. For us, it's information." The enemy struck suddenly. Shadows surged from the ruins, not to attack, but to isolate. Walls seemed to close in. Paths vanished. Human squads were cut off from each other. For a moment, conquered observers thought the humans had made a mistake. Then the humans adapted. "Decentralize," Cade ordered. "Independent action." Human units switched to autonomous operation. Each squad made decisions without waiting for command. They shared data in bursts, not constant streams. The enemy tried to break them apart. Instead, it gave them freedom. Squad Echo moved through a collapsed transit tunnel. The pressure was intense here, the enemy's presence thick. Reyes felt it again, the pull, the whisper. This time it tried something new. It showed him victory, a future where the war was over, where fighting stopped, where rest waited. Reyes frowned. "That's new," he said. "Yeah," his squad leader replied. "Means it's getting desperate." They pushed forward. The enemy's forms became clearer now, fractured shapes flickering at the edge of sight. Human sensors locked on patterns, not shapes. Weaknesses emerged. Energy pulses hit precise points. The enemy's structure destabilized. It pulled back sharply, retreating deeper into the planet. "It's learning," Park said, "but slower than us." Cade watched the data. "It's not built to be chased." On Relly's conquered forces felt the change. The pressure lifted slightly. Breathing became easier. Some soldiers stood up again. "They're pushing it away," Vorun said in disbelief, "without heavy weapons." "They're doing worse," one of his officers replied softly. "They're understanding it." The enemy fled Relly's, not defeated, but driven off. For the first time in its long existence, it retreated without achieving collapse. Across the conquered, reports began to spread. Human units were not just resisting, they were forcing the enemy to adapt. Fear no longer traveled freely. It slowed where humans operated. Systems once abandoned were being reclaimed, but with success came concern. Alien leaders met in emergency councils. "These humans operate without restraint," one delegate said. "They ignore established doctrine." "They ignore fear," another replied. "That may be more dangerous." Lethrix listened in silence. "They are not ignoring fear," he said finally. "They are mastering it." On Earth, Dr. Venn reviewed psychological data. "The enemy is reacting emotionally," he said. "That's new." Hale raised an eyebrow. "You're saying the fear weapon is afraid." "In a way," Venn replied, "it's never faced resistance like this. Humans don't collapse when exposed to stress, they reorganize." Admiral Cole nodded slowly. "That's why we sent Beastfall." She paused. but it also means escalation is coming. Back on the front, Commander Cade stood in the ruins of Relly's as human units regrouped. "We pushed it back," Park said, "but it won't stop." "No," Cade agreed. "It can't. This is the first time it's felt threatened." She looked up at the dark sky. "It's going to come harder next time?" Far away in the deep dark between systems, the enemy gathered its strength. Its shared consciousness trembled with something unfamiliar. Not confusion, not rage, fear. For the first time, it understood what it meant to be hunted. And it hated it. The galaxy had called for saviors. Earth had sent its beasts. Now the beasts had taught the hunters a lesson they would never forget. Fear could be learned. And fear could be returned. After the enemy withdrew from Relly's, conquered forces expected celebration, relief, maybe even joy. Instead, what spread across the Alliance was something quieter and heavier: unease. On reclaimed worlds, alien soldiers watched human units move through streets and ruins. The humans repaired systems, rebuilt defenses, and prepared for the next fight without pause. They did not cheer. They did not rest long. They did not talk about what they had done. They simply prepared. To many in the conquered, this was disturbing. "They act as if this war is normal," said Councillor Hessian, a tall avian delegate, during an emergency council meeting. "As if facing a fear entity is routine." Lethrix listened, his tendrils slowly curling. "For them," he replied, "hardship has always been routine." "But they frighten our people," another delegate said. "Civilians whisper that Earth sent predators, not protectors." The word spread quickly: predators, beasts, monsters. On the world of Selûne Prime, human soldiers patrolled the streets at night. Lights glowed brighter now, shops reopened, life returned. Still, when humans passed, alien civilians stepped back. Private Jonah Reyes noticed it first. "They look at us like we're the enemy," he said quietly to his squad leader. "They don't understand us," she replied, "and right now fear is easier than gratitude." Reyes frowned. "We're helping." "Yeah," she said, "but we're also reminding them how dangerous the universe is." The enemy sensed this shift. From the dark spaces between systems, it watched the humans closely. It no longer attacked blindly. Instead, it studied patterns, reactions, and most importantly, relationships. It noticed the distance growing between humans and their allies. And it understood how to use that. The next attack did not come as fear, it came as doubt. On the industrial world of Keshtar, conquered commanders reported strange behavior: no direct enemy presence, no emotional pressure, just mistrust. Alien units hesitated to coordinate with humans. Orders were delayed. Information was withheld. Rumors spread quickly. The humans provoked the enemy. Commander Sarah Cade was briefed as she studied tactical maps. "This isn't the enemy's usual method," Lieutenant Park said. "No fear waves, no pressure." Cade's expression hardened. "It's adapting." She opened a channel to the local Conquered command. "We need full cooperation," she said calmly. "Delays give the enemy room." The Conquered commander hesitated before responding. "Your presence unsettles our troops." Cade took a slow breath. "We are not here to replace you. We are here to stop what's coming." The channel closed. Park looked at her. "They don't trust us." "No," Cade replied, "and the enemy knows it." That night the enemy struck, not at the humans, at the Alliance. It triggered false alerts in Conquered systems, making it seem as if human units had acted without permission. Communications showed altered logs. Orders appeared forged. Confusion spread fast. Alien soldiers pulled back from joint positions. Defensive lines weakened. Human sensors picked up the change immediately. "They're isolating us," Reyes said, "turning them against us." Cade nodded. "Classic divide and break." She activated a secure Earth channel. "Admiral, the enemy is attacking trust," she said, "not territory." On Earth, Admiral Cole's jaw tightened. "Then we respond carefully," she said. "No escalation." Back on Keshtar, the enemy pushed harder. Shadows appeared at the edges of cities. Whispers returned, but aimed at alien minds. "They will abandon you. They do not care. The beasts will leave when you break." Alien panic rose. Human units could feel the pressure too, but they stayed steady. They did not charge forward. They did something unexpected. They stopped. Cade ordered all human forces to hold position. Park looked surprised. "We can push it back." "Yes," Cade said, "but that's what it wants." Instead, she did something that shocked both allies and enemy. She handed control to the Conquered. "We'll support," she told the local commander. "You lead." The Conquered commander froze. "You trust us?" Cade's reply was simple. "We're allies," the enemy faltered. This reaction did not fit its understanding of humans. It expected dominance, control, fear. Instead, it saw restraint. On the ground, human medics helped alien wounded without orders. Engineers shared power systems. Soldiers stood side by side, silent, steady, present. Fear slowed. The enemy grew frustrated. It pushed harder, projecting visions of human betrayal, of Earth abandoning the conquered once the threat grew too costly. But the humans stayed. Reyes stood guard with an alien soldier whose hands shook. "You okay?" Reyes asked. The alien nodded slowly. "You are not afraid," Reyes shrugged. "I am just not running." The simple honesty mattered. Across Keshtar, the pressure lifted. The enemy withdrew again, but it was not defeated. In the conquered council, arguments grew louder. "They nearly turned us against our saviors," one delegate said. "Or revealed a truth," another argued. "Humans are too dangerous. What happens when they decide we are the problem?" Lethrix rose slowly. "Earth has the power to dominate us," he said. "And yet they choose restraint." He paused, letting that sink in. "That should terrify us more than any beast." On Earth, Admiral Cole watched the political fallout. "They're afraid of our control," Hale said, "not our strength." Cole nodded, "as they should be." Dr. Venn leaned forward. "The enemy failed today, but it learned something important." "What?" Hale asked. "That humans have limits," Venn replied, "and it will try to push us past them." Back on the front lines, Commander Cade stood alone, watching the stars. The enemy was no longer just fighting humans. It was shaping the galaxy's fear of them, and that might be the most dangerous battlefield yet. The beasts of Earth had won another fight, but now their allies were beginning to wonder. What happens if the beasts ever stop choosing restraint? It no longer tried to scare humans directly. It no longer tried to break alien armies with fear alone. Instead, it tried to force a choice. Across conquered space, small systems began to fall, not from panic, but from impossible situations. The enemy struck places where civilians and soldiers were mixed, where every response risked loss, where hesitation meant disaster. It was testing the humans. Commander Sarah Cade stood in the operations room aboard the human command ship Iron Resolve. The room was quiet except for data streams flowing across the walls. Lieutenant Park broke the silence. "3 systems hit in the last cycle. Same pattern," Cade nodded. "Pressure without clear targets." "They're baiting us," Park said, "trying to make us overreact." Cade's jaw tightened. "Or trying to make us cross a line." The next alert came before anyone could respond. System VELORIAN. Veloran was not a fortress world. It was a cultural hub, schools, libraries, archives of shared conquered history. Military presence was minimal by design. Now shadows spread through its cities. Alien leaders panicked. "They are inside population zones," one council member cried. "We cannot fight there. Call the humans," another demanded. "They will know what to do." The message reached Cade within minutes. She closed her eyes briefly. "Deploy," she said, "but carefully." Human ships entered Veloran orbit under full observation. Conquered media feeds followed every movement. Billions watched. This time there was no celebration, only fear. "They're watching us," Park said quietly. "Good," Cade replied. "Then they'll see what we choose." The enemy welcomed them. Pressure slammed into human minds the moment boots touched ground. Not fear, urgency, screams, false emergencies, signals showing civilians in danger everywhere at once. Human squads spread out, fast but controlled. Private Jonah Reyes moved through a wide plaza filled with statues and memory pillars. Civilians hid inside buildings, watching through cracks and screens. "They're everywhere," he said over comms, "but nowhere solid." The enemy wanted chaos. It wanted humans to bring overwhelming force. It wanted proof that the beasts would destroy to win. Reyes felt anger rise. "Just tell us where to hit," someone muttered on the channel. "No," Cade's voice came through, firm and clear. "Weapons hold unless confirmed." Some soldiers hesitated. "Commander," Park said carefully, "we can end this fast." "Yes," Cade replied, "and end more than just the enemy." The pressure increased. Buildings flickered. Lights failed. Civilians cried out as false images filled their minds. Fires, collapses, threats that felt real. Conquered leaders begged. "Please," the Veloran governor transmitted. "Do whatever you must." Cade stared at the city before her. She remembered Project Beastfall briefings. Worst-case options, final measures, tools designed to erase threats completely. She did not activate them. "Switch tactics," she ordered. "Contain, don't crush." Human units changed approach instantly. Instead of advancing aggressively, they formed protective rings around civilian centers. Shields went up. Emergency beacons activated. Human medics moved into shelters. They made themselves targets. The enemy reacted with frustration. Its pressure intensified around the humans trying to force a mistake. Shadows grew denser. False commands flooded channels. Reyes clenched his teeth. "Feels like it wants us angry," he said. "That's because it does," his squad leader replied. "So don't give it that." Hours passed. The enemy pushed. Humans held, no buildings fell, no wide weapons fired. Civilians slowly realized the humans were not here to dominate, but to shield. Fear changed shape. Across conquered space, watchers noticed something strange. The humans were losing ground tactically, but winning something else. Trust. On Earth, Admiral Cole watched the feeds in silence. "They could end it," General Hale said. "Right now." "Yes," Cole replied, "and if they did, the galaxy would never forgive them." Dr. Venn leaned forward. "The enemy is forcing a moral test." "And losing," Cole said quietly. On Velaran, the enemy made one last attempt. It projected a single clear threat, one massive concentration beneath the central archive where millions of cultural records were stored. Destroying it would cripple the Conquered's shared history. Human sensors confirmed it. Park looked at Cade. "That's the core." "If we hit it hard, we risk the archive," Cade finished. Silence filled the channel. Every soldier waited. Cade took a breath. "No," she said, "we don't trade souls for speed." Instead, humans did something the enemy had not predicted. They evacuated. Under pressure, under threat, they coordinated with alien authorities to move civilians and priceless knowledge away from the danger zone. Slow, difficult, risky, the enemy raged. Its presence surged wildly, losing precision. That was its mistake. With civilians clear, humans struck, not with devastation but precision, focused disruption, controlled force, enough to break the enemy's hold without destroying the city. The shadows collapsed inward and vanished. Velaran survived, exhausted but intact. Across the Conquered, something shifted. "They could have erased everything," one delegate said softly, "and they chose not to." Lethrix closed his eyes. "That choice matters more than victory." On the surface, Reyes sat against a wall, breathing hard. "That was close," he said. "Yeah," his squad leader replied. "That was the point." Commander Cade stood in the quiet plaza as sunlight returned. The enemy had retreated again, but this time shaken. It had pushed humans to the edge, and humans had stopped themselves. Far away in the deep dark, the enemy reeled. It had expected destruction. Instead, it had met restraint, something it could not control. Fear no longer worked the same way. For the first time, the enemy faced a terrifying truth. Humans were not dangerous because they lacked limits. They were dangerous because they had them, and they chose when not to cross them. The galaxy watched the beasts of Earth and realized they were guarding more than territory. They were guarding a line. When they refused to let even themselves cross, that truth spread slowly at first, like dawn creeping over a dark horizon. There was no single moment where the galaxy declared victory, no great announcement. No final battle that everyone could point to and say, "This is where it ended." Instead, systems went quiet. Fear signals weakened. Shadows appeared less often. Worlds that had been silent for weeks began to report normal emotional patterns again. The enemy was still there. But it was no longer winning. Commander Sarah Cade studied the latest reports aboard the Iron Resolve. Her face showed no relief, only focus. "It's fragmenting," Lieutenant Park said. "Not retreating as one force anymore." Cade nodded. "That means it's hurt." "Hurt enemies are dangerous," Park added. "Yes," Cade agreed, "especially this one." Across conquered space, human units continued their work. They did not chase the enemy blindly. They sealed off routes, stabilized worlds, and strengthened local defenses. They taught conquered forces how to recognize early signs of manipulation and fear patterns. They shared knowledge, not control. On the world of Dareth, conquered soldiers trained alongside humans for the first time without hesitation. The air was still tense, but something had changed. An alien officer approached Private Jonah Reyes during a break. "You fight differently," the officer said. "You do not seek glory," Reyes shrugged. "Glory gets you killed." The alien considered this. "Then why do you fight?" Reyes thought for a moment. "So other people don't have to?" The answer spread quietly. The enemy tried one final strategy. It gathered what remained of its strength and struck not at a world, but at information. Conquered archives, command relays, and historical records across multiple systems began to show signs of corruption. Not destruction, distortion. If it could not win the war, it would poison the memory of it. Panic threatened to rise again. This could undo everything, a Conquered analyst warned. If trust in records collapses, it won't, Cade said. We're ready for this. Human units shifted focus immediately. Cyber teams worked alongside Conquered historians. Engineers stabilized data centers. Soldiers guarded archives instead of front lines. It was slow work, unexciting work, essential work. The enemy pressed, trying to create doubt. Conflicting records, false timelines, fake orders hidden deep in data layers, but humans were stubborn. They cross-checked, verified. Questioned everything. Where fear once spread unchecked, now it met resistance from millions of minds trained to ask, is this true? The enemy weakened further. In the Conquered Council, Lethrix addressed the delegates. The humans do not seek to rule us, he said. They seek to make us stronger without them. Some delegates shifted uncomfortably. That may be even more dangerous, one muttered. Lethrix turned toward them. No, that is trust. On Earth, Admiral Renata Cole received the final projections. Enemy coherence at minimum levels, Dr. Venn reported. It's no longer capable of large-scale operations. General Hale crossed his arms. So we finish it. Cole shook her head slowly. No, Hale frowned. We have the chance to end this permanently. And teach the galaxy that annihilation is our answer, Cole replied. She stood. No, we contain, we secure, we step back. Venn nodded. The enemy feeds on extremes, deny it those. Orders went out. Human forces began to withdraw from forward positions, not all at once. Not suddenly, gradually. On the front lines, the reaction was mixed. They're leaving, a Conquered soldier asked, alarmed. No, his commander replied. They're letting us stand. Commander Cade announced the shift to her teams. We're transitioning to support-only roles, she said. Local forces take lead. Reyes felt a strange weight in his chest. Feels unfinished. Cade looked at him. Peace always does. As humans pulled back, they left behind tools, training programs, and reinforced systems. They shared their understanding of the enemy openly. They did not keep secrets. The enemy tried to strike during the withdrawal, small attacks, weak pushes, last attempts to scare. They failed. Conquered forces held firm. Fear rose, but did not break them. The humans watched from a distance, ready but restrained. The enemy faded into deep space, scattered and diminished. Not destroyed. Contained. The war ended without fireworks. On Velaran, civilians gathered in the same plaza where fear had once ruled. This time, humans were not present. Conquered leaders spoke, rebuilding confidence in their own strength. Children played again. On the edge of Conquered space, the final human ships prepared to leave. Commander Cade stood on the bridge, looking at the stars. Do you think they'll remember us kindly? Park asked. Cade considered the question. No, she said. They'll remember us honestly. On Earth, Admiral Cole watched the fleet return. We did what we came to do, Hale said. Cole nodded, and stopped when it was enough. Dr. Venn leaned back. The enemy is no longer the greatest threat. What is? Hale asked. Venn smiled faintly. What the galaxy decides to do with the idea of us. Back in Conquered space, Lethrix recorded a final message for the archives. They came when we called, he said. They fought what we could not, and when they could have taken control, they stepped away. He paused. That restraint saved us as much as their strength. The last human ship crossed the boundary and vanished into the dark. The galaxy felt quieter, not empty, just steadier. The beasts of Earth were gone, and for the first time the Conquered understood something profound. True victory was not loud, it did not roar, it did not demand to be feared. It simply left the world standing. And trusted others to keep it that way. No final explosion marked its end. No great enemy fleet burned across the stars. No single moment told the galaxy, you are safe now. Instead, life continued. Worlds rebuilt, trade routes reopened. Children went back to schools that had once been silent. Conquered space slowly returned to motion, like a body learning how to breathe again after a long sickness. And everywhere, the same question lingered. What do we do now that the humans are gone? Supreme Coordinator Lethrix stood in the Hall of Unity, looking up at the empty space where emergency alerts once flashed without rest. The hall was calm now, too calm. They left us stronger, one advisor said beside him. Yes, Lethrix replied, and more afraid. The advisor hesitated. Afraid of what? Lethrix's tendrils moved slowly. afraid of what strength looks like when it chooses restraint. Across conquered worlds, stories about the humans began to change. At first, they were called beasts, dangerous, silent, unstoppable. Then guardians, necessary but unsettling. Now they were becoming something else. Legends on Selûne Prime, an alien child asked her teacher, "Are humans real?" The teacher smiled softly. "Yes, very real." "Why did they help us?" the child asked. The teacher paused, then answered honestly. "Because they know what it is like to be afraid and still stand." On Earth, life returned to normal as well. Cities moved. People argued, laughed, worked, and rested. For many, the war had been distant, felt only through news feeds and quiet updates. But for those who went, the silence followed them home. Private Jonah Reyes stepped off the transport ship onto Earth soil and stood still for a long moment. The air felt different, calmer. "Feels strange," his squad leader said quietly. "Yeah," Reyes replied, "like something's missing." They had faced fear that ate worlds, and now Earth felt small again. Commander Sarah Cade stood before a small group of officials and officers in a quiet debriefing room. "No banners, no applause. You achieved what many believed impossible," one official said. "The conquered will remember Earth for this." Cade shook her head. "They shouldn't." The room fell silent. "They should remember themselves," she continued. "That they learned to stand without us." After the debrief, Cade walked alone. For the first time in months, there were no alerts waiting for her, no pressure in the back of her mind. She looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, the enemy still existed, scattered, weakened, contained. It had not been destroyed. That was a choice. Back in conquered space, that choice became a topic of debate. "They should have ended it," one delegate argued. "Why leave a threat alive?" Another responded, "Because ending it that way would have changed us." Lethrix listened and finally spoke. "They showed us something important," he said. "Power without restraint is not protection. It is just another kind of fear." The conquered voted soon after. A new charter was written. It focused on shared defense, emotional resilience training, and transparency between species. Humans had not demanded these changes. They had inspired them. Statues were proposed. Earth refused. Memorial days were suggested. Earth declined. In the end, the conquered chose something else. Education. Records were created not praising humanity as saviors, but documenting their choices, their limits, their refusal to cross certain lines even when victory was close. The story was not, "Humans saved us." It was, "Humans showed us how not to lose ourselves." Years passed. The galaxy changed. Fear-based threats became easier to detect. Worlds responded faster. Panic no longer spread unchecked. The enemy never returned in force. It lingered at the edges of space, aware now that some prey could turn into hunters and stop themselves before becoming monsters. On a distant research station, conquered scientists studied faint emotional echoes left behind by the enemy. "It reacts to expectation," one scientist noted. "To belief," another nodded. "Then perhaps belief is our strongest defense." On Earth, Jonah Reyes visited a school at the request of a teacher friend. He stood awkwardly in front of a class of children. "Did you fight monsters?" one child asked. Reyes smiled faintly. "No." "What did you fight then?" Reyes thought carefully. "Fear, mostly our own," the child frowned. "Did you win?" Reyes shrugged. "We didn't lose." Far above Earth, Admiral Renata Cole retired quietly. In her final address, she said only one thing worth remembering. "We answered the call," she said, "and we stopped when answering was enough." No medals followed, no parades, just history. In conquered space, generations grew up hearing stories about the war. Over time, the word beast faded. In its place came another phrase. The ones who chose not to, they spoke of humans who could have ruled but didn't, who could have destroyed but didn't, who could have become the greatest fear in the galaxy but chose to be its limit instead. One day, long after Commander Cade and Jonah Reyes were gone, a new signal echoed faintly across deep space. Not a threat, not a plea, just a question. "Is anyone there?" The conquered debated how to respond. Lethrix, old now, offered guidance. "We answer," he said. "But we do not send beasts. And if they ask for Earth," a delegate asked. Lethrix's eyes softened. "Then we tell them the truth," he said. "Earth is not our weapon." He paused. "It is our reminder." Far away on a quiet blue world, humanity continued as it always had, arguing, building, failing, learning. Unaware that across the stars, their greatest legacy was not fear, it was restraint. The galaxy had called for saviors. Earth had sent its beasts. And in the end, what everyone remembered most was not how hard those beasts fought. but when they chose to stop.